record button. All right. Folks, we are back for one final look at the Transformers RPG as part of Paths Less Traveled. I'm your host, your GM, Jake, BB, Big Brother, whatever you want to call me, but tonight my role is not really as a game master. We've completed our quest, our adventure here, and we just didn't have enough time last time we played to really go over our thoughts on the system, for better or worse. So, we're coming back. This is probably going to be a shorter episode, and we want to share with you what we think about it, how we feel, and all that. So I'm joined by my players, and I'm just going to introduce them. And they might not have the game open. That's not super important if you guys want to have it. If you don't, all good. But I am joined by Thread, who played our warrior Flit Switch,
Yes.
Light Swipe.
Yes. Light swipe. They are swashbuckler. It was a good time.
It was a
They
good
were
time.
fancy. They were
You know what?
fancy.
I
That's the alt move.
did actually get a comment on one of the videos, one of the Pathless Travel Transformers videos, that said they thought your character concept might have better fit a class called Raider.
Ooh. Okay. I'll look into that. That sounds cool.
Yep,
Whatever that is, that
it
sounds
is from
important.
the Decepticon book. Yeah.
Oh. So what
So
if they were like a senator gone Decepticon? Ooh.
welcome one and
I
all.
like my sword. I just didn't get to use it, and that's fine.
Yeah. I'm also joined by my good buddy, the guy I've known the longest, Ben. Ben
Oh.
Ben played Red Tape in our campaign. One of our gunners.
I have two gunners that we had.
Two gunners. That is something we can talk about. And speaking of our other gunner, we are also joined by Volley, who is played by none other than Shy.
Well, hello. The not so shy, by the way.
It's good rhyming there. And then bringing up the rear, because he did play the slowest moving vehicular character. We have Decaf, who played in our little campaign here, Flit Switch.
I was just really concerned about my paint job, okay?
Valid. And not the tech medic being the star like destroyer. How that happened, we loved it.
So yeah, we have played through the adventure featured in the Transformers RPG role-playing game. I guess core rulebook is what you would call it. I don't think they actually label it that. But we played through. It's got a name. I just have to find it. Can you believe I didn't have this ready? Troubled Waters. So we played through the Troubled Waters little module, little adventure. And we built characters for it and everything. We didn't even use pre-gens. And so I want to talk about that, about our experience with this system. And I want to keep this a little bit brief. I want to start with first impressions. And I'll lead us off here. I'll start by saying I am a huge Transformers fan. It is easily my favorite sort of franchise. If somebody came up to me, they said, you can have complete creative control over any franchise you want, Transformers would be my first pick. That being said, this game left something to be desired. There were things I felt that didn't quite fit Transformers, and in the system, I am looking for a little bit more crunch that I don't think this system provided. Now, again, I think I might be a little bit spoiled. This is going to come up, I imagine, several times during our discussion here. I might be a little bit spoiled by Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but I really think we needed like an action system like that here for something like this. That's just my first impressions. We'll get more into that as we talk about other aspects of it, but what do you guys think? Anyone of you want to go first?
So like, my first impression of it was, with the game itself was overall, enjoyable. But
Yes.
from
Yeah.
having played D&D, and I've even played like 5e, I guess they call it.
Yep.
I played Pathfinder, like both of those
And
last
you've played
versions that we've
yeah, you've played a homebrew Transformers RPG.
yes, and a homebrewed version of it. Like, there's just so much more in literally every other system I've played than there is in this. So there's like
Mm.
not it was enjoyable, but there's like it was missing a lot, like it was incomplete.
Okay. I think that's fair. And I also think it's worth remembering, like, keeping in mind, well, I think that is a reasonable call out. We were mainly playing off of 3 books, whereas
Yeah.
those systems that you all listed have like 10 plus books for us to like draw upon. But no, I think that's valid. Um, Anybody else want to jump in here?
I think I can.
Oh,
Oh, go for it.
go for sure. Oh, yeah. All right. Then mine's just.
It's
We're
like,
great at this.
oh
Woo,
man,
woo.
it is the verbal version of 2 people walking towards each other,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
and you guys
Yeah,
both
like, oh no,
sidestep in the
you.
same direction.
And no,
Yep.
you. But yes, just keeping mine brief. I'm probably, when it comes to game systems, the least experienced out of everyone on the call. Even though, yes, I've played 5e. I've with BB's help been able to play Pathfinder
Dabbled in
2e.
Pathfinder. Yep. You made
Yeah,
it to level
yep. I've
2.
now dabbled into. I made it to level 2, uh, from 0, mind you.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, it was actually the Occam's razor, like part, like easiness of it all. I enjoyed. I at a high level just enjoyed the character creation of it, and how I intentionally built a character that was like evenly leveled, just to see like, oh, what happens if this happens here. Do I have the space to like work with it or not? I did like that was an option where you could either stack it all in one place or
Hmm.
level it, but that there were like pros and cons to how you would build your character.
Hmm.
So overall, the most enjoyable experience was to be able to like be in the Transformers world and building characters and all the perks. I also like that this was the first game my character actually had free actions. Normally, because I usually play a paladin, or a champion in Pathfinder 2e. Normally, we don't get free actions. So I was like, yes, I finally get free actions on top of an action and a movement, and I
Hmm.
did enjoy that. Um, yeah, so those are the 2 pieces. I'll have more to say, but overall, I liked it. It was easy enough for me to follow as a noob, but I'm sure, yeah, there's some things to be desired, including, I guess I was having a little bit of a hard time with Roll20 like UI with it all, but
Yeah,
that's a me
that is
issue.
separate from the game.
That's a me issue. That's not an Essence 20 issue either. So yeah.
So I mean that's both separate from the game. That might be on Roll20's end, and then we also have to keep in mind that we were trying to use Power Rangers, which does use the same general rule system to
Yeah,
run
Yeah.
little
Transformers.
smaller than
Yeah.
than a transformer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I do admit the last piece is hit points was a little scary because unlike other systems where you get 30, 50, 100 hit
Hmm.
points, blah, 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 you get 5 or 2. And so it was really touch and go as a level 1, it felt like. So I will, that was the one thing that made me a little nervous that a character could be wiped out with like 1,
Hmm.
2 things and then it's out. And so
Yeah.
I had concerns about that, but yeah, that's
Fair.
all I
Fair.
had.
All right. Well, Shy, you said you had something ready to go.
Yeah, I will say just off of like initial impression, to say that I didn't have fun would be completely inaccurate. I actually had an enjoyable time still, actually
Always a goal.
quite a bit of fun.
Good.
So like, uh, while I will say initial impression, I wouldn't say it's my system. I have some similar kind of opinions as I think to you, where it's like I think I like a little more rules crunch. I like a little more
A little more meat on the bones.
Yeah, a little more, but I can also see where like this has some of that enjoyability for a lot less of it. It was a lot easier to get into.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and again, like I said, I did enjoy having playing and I had some good old fun with it. And honestly, kind of along threads line, character creation was a blast.
Yeah.
You know, there
Yeah.
might I have some specific like pros and cons for like character creation and other parts of the system itself, but like overall it was enjoyable.
Well, great. Excellent. That leaves us with Decaf. Now, Decaf,
Hello.
you said you've got notes. But we're gonna
First
start off.
impressions? I'll just leave it as first impressions.
We'll start off. Yep, simple. We'll start off simple.
Character creation, great, loved it, had a great time. I'm not a vehicular person, so that was fun trying to figure out a vehicle of choice. Inevitably, I literally just did a Google search because I am who I am, and I just said, "What is the gayest vehicle known to exist?"
Well, so I'll jump in
Woo
here real
woo.
quick. That is my issue. As somebody who loves Transformers as much as I do, you'd think I'd know vehicles a little bit better.
Sure.
But I don't. And so I look up vehicles, and so then my algorithm's like, oh, he's shopping for a car. Quick, send him a bunch of car ads.
Oh no.
Love it. That is so funny. Yep, that's the power of Google these days. But yeah, no, first impressions, character creation, I actually really loved the process. I thought it was very fun. The after trip was where I started to go, oh god, okay. The initial sessions were actually really fun to me.
Mhm.
It was more of a, like, I am definitely along for the ride until we get into the nitty gritty. For a system that is definitely built around combat, the combat needs an overhaul.
I do have an entire section on that, so that is something we can definitely get into.
Yeah. But that's my first impression. It's great. It has a great presentation. It's like a sales pitch. You love it, then you get the product, and you go, wait.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry. I'm the only one who deals with lying salesmen. Got it.
Well, great. So yeah, I think from here we're just gonna kind of start at the beginning. We've already kind of talked about character creation. Now, like we only made first level characters. But how do we feel about that? Now, I've made some characters offline on my own, but I didn't make any characters for this. I just used the threats from the book. And so, how do you guys feel about that? Did you feel like there were enough options to suit the types of characters you wanted to build? Just a sort of general, or just a general idea of how it went when it comes to building characters and stuff like that, and how they all went together. Whoever wants.
I think
Yeah, Ben, absolutely, jump in, bud.
so. I think the character creation portion of it was actually really well done. It might not have like the years upon years of depth that the other systems have, but I'm not really even sure how long it took for them to make this, but for what it had, I thought it was really put together pretty decently. And I'm like a person that'll be in a character creation screen for like hours and hours. So like, if you lose me on the character creation, like you lose me for the entire game.
Right, that's fair. That's fair.
So like, it did what it needed to do, and it gave me more than enough options to figure out a character that I thought would be kind of fun or funny.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it had
And
me enough to be able to go forward.
I think that's something of note. Something specifically I want to discuss is the fact that, like we said, you and Shy both played gunners.
Yeah.
But I think they still managed to feel distinct from each other.
Yep.
I think you and I were completely different. It felt like, yeah.
Very different, yeah.
So yeah, I will say I think that is an accomplishment of the system. Now maybe they start feeling a little less distinct as they level, because you guys are both going to get a lot of the same like gunner benefits and stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, I think with level 1, I think they help feel distinct. We had Volley as our like heavy gunner, and we had Red Tape as more of our sniper. And
like he was doing a lot of AoE stuff, and I sure as hell was not doing any of that.
Yeah, but I feel like you were a little bit like I'm not trying to like throw any shade on Shy here, but I do feel like you were as a sniper just a little bit more accurate. You were landing shots a little bit more readily. Not in all the fights, but I just
I think part of that was also just because of the fact that unfortunately I cannot roll to save my life using roll 20.
that might also be part of it.
that might not help. Definitely could be at least a little bit of a hindrance.
Yeah. So yeah, Ben says character creation solid, good. What about the rest of you?
Suppose I'm already kind of
Sort of
involved in
talking
the
about it.
process of a
Yeah,
gunner, yeah. So I'll continue along here. Again, I enjoyed character creation. I think I've got a lot of similar things. I enjoyed a lot of the different little versatilities. I will say it felt and maybe it's just because we didn't use any books outside of like the basic stuff. And then because I was explicitly looking at certain things we brought up, like the heavy gunner thing from a different book, but like outside of that, um, while it stayed versatile, I do almost wish there was a little more feeling like I could do more size things. Maybe it's because I am so used to like Pathfinder with like humanocentric
Mhm.
stuff, and I'm not used to maybe the Transformer idea where you're this massive robot. But like I wanted to be this common size thing, and I felt like I only had this one option to do that, you know.
Mhm.
As an immediate example. Now, again, that's not necessarily true, but I felt like I would have been nice to have more
So you're talking more about
variability to like small
when it
things.
came to your like mode, like you went Outrider, so you could be like common sized and stuff.
Yeah, because I deliberately was trying to be a common because I wanted to
Mm.
be smaller. But again, that's me just being what I was trying to build in the moment.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. I think common is so the common size is based
The
more on the
common size
fact
doesn't feel common.
common. Right. That is
Yeah.
that's because the Transformers uses the same size system as Power Rangers and GI Joe, and
Yeah.
so that's where all the common size characters are. Um,
Yes, which makes sense. And again, maybe it's just because I'm not used to the concept of being a big I suppose to be fair, if you're wanting to play Transformers, a lot of people probably are like, yeah, I want to be a.
yeah,
I
and
could see someone wanting to be this gigantic
Transformers
bulldozer.
is, I would say, infamous. Other people might say famous for cheating when it comes to scale, where like you have a motorcycle that transforms into like 3 times the height of a human man,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the triple changer who transforms from a jet into an aircraft carrier.
Okay, that's actually impressive. That's a dense jet. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and see that's the thing. I'm not a big fan of mass shifting myself, but it is part of the franchise.
Yeah, no. So maybe again, and from like a different end of it, maybe it's a part where I just didn't quite get in the right headspace. But I also had a concept in mind, but that's because I just love motorcycles. So of course I want to be a
Yeah,
bike.
yeah, I think that's fair. Anything else about character creation stand out to you, or should we
Again,
tag
the
somebody else
versatility
in?
was nice. But I think for the most part, I think that's kind of everything I have. I will say I've always struggled with like skill inputting, but I think it's fun versatility. That's just
Hmm.
me like struggling with it. But I enjoy when you give players enough chance to actually invest in all of it, which is why like level 1 can be a struggle.
Hmm.
It's nice to be able to have that kind of versatility deliberately because then anyone could almost be anything.
Yeah,
So the fact that they have that combined with the fact that you're still a class on top of that is interesting.
yeah, yep. I agree
But
with you there.
I'll leave it there.
All right. Um, if there's anybody ready to give their opinion
Yep.
on Thread, yeah, What do you
Oh
think?
yeah. So some fun stuff. I'm also team like, yeah, this was cool to build character. I felt it was easy enough to understand that I felt like I didn't have to go down like a 3 week rabbit hole to understand how to build one character. Um, it was able to be done in a matter of a few minutes with us together, which I appreciate, BB, you letting us do that as session 0 as a
Yeah.
collective because it made things a lot easier. I like that I had 3 things I had wanted to do with this piece, which was one, build a character that lined up with the story. I noticed maybe in the other games we played, I was more focused on can I have a character that does not die? And so that's usually like it was more of a strategic focus, but here it was more like I wanted a character that had some character,
Mhm.
and so, at least in my attempt here, I was trying to build a character that lined up with the vision of the storytelling I had wanted to try. And so I did appreciate that. I appreciated that there were 3 parts. So this goes into the second piece. That the parts that you chose were interconnected. In other words, how you distributed your skills determined how many energon points you had. So
Mm.
that was like part of being strategic.
Mhm.
The perks and hangups, I thought that piece was neat, that if you had
Your
wanted an extra perk.
Vainglorious. Your Vainglorious
Yeah,
was a lot of fun.
it was so much fun. So I was actually like, I'm glad I had that. It made things interesting in combat, but it made things interesting. And so that was the key piece. Um, and I like that the skills had that, which led, I like that the skills you chose also was that upshift, downshift. So kind of like using modifiers in a different way. I thought
Mhm.
that was fascinating.
Yeah.
That modifiers were determined by the dice roll that rolled on top of your d20 here. And so I thought that was fascinating. Even though if you looked at our rolls in our previous session, were we rolling d20s or d10s? Like, I don't know what was going on. But yeah,
I felt
I
like I
thought
was
that was
rolling d6s, but valid.
right. D4 at best. Like,
2d4.
it was one. D4.
Flip a
But
coin.
yeah, flip a coin and still failed. Like, it's fine. But I thought that was neat. The only hang up I had wanted to, there were 2 pieces I had a couple issues with.
Mhm.
One, I realized after the fact I had chose champion alt mode, and I think I set up my skills that were contradictory to what was allowed in that champion alt mode. So if we were like playing this longer, I would have sat with you, BB, and been like, how can we actually adjust my sheet
Nah.
to correct my mistake here?
Retrain my character a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to have finesse, but I actually weighted the most on finesse with my design because I thought I was going to be more of like a swashbuckler here.
Well,
But
your blade
apparently,
did use like finesse and stuff. It was
yeah,
just
exactly,
if you
which
wanted
is
to
why I
shoot
picked it.
somebody, you needed targeting.
I Yeah, that part. But yeah, the champion alt mode I think was saying where you cannot use skills that require articulation or precision,
That
such as
is,
athletics and finesse.
yeah, but
And
that
I was
is
like,
while you're
oh,
in the alt mode.
oh, only in alt
In
mode. Oh
car
my
form.
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't use my sword while driving. Okay. Phew, I was worried. All right, I'll take it. So, okay, I didn't do
Hey,
anything wrong.
Hey, so that
well,
removes the complaint you had, the one issue you
Yay!
had.
Look at that. You're doing so great, Essence 20. Woo.
you
Um,
know, if I may thread, clearly
mhm,
someone
mhm.
mentioned what was it? What did you say? Raider, BB?
Yes.
Yeah, Raider.
You should have gone gunner because they had a way to partially transform while in alt mode to have a gun in an
Ooh,
integrated slot, aka you could have
ooh.
had a sword in an integrated slot while driving.
We could have
And
we could have
or
run
gun.
we could have run Oops All Gunners for the Troubled Waters adventure.
Oops all gunners. Well, we had oops all planes, so that would have probably been fair. But that makes sense though. The other piece that bothered me with character creation was we all got standard weapons, but I couldn't use half of them. And so that also bothered me.
That's
But
fair.
part of that was my design. Like I
Your
was like,
skill
if you're gonna
investment.
give me, yeah, my skill investment. I was like, if you're gonna give me a blaster, I should be able to shoot because I think what happened was when I tried to use the blaster, like it would have taken like I think 3 or 4 upshifts before I went beyond like it failing automatically, like auto failing. And so I was like, oh, then why give me a blaster? Was I just holding it for my friends? Like what? Like, okay. But yeah, that was the only thing. I was like, if you're gonna give me guns, I should be like with Pathfinder 2e champions being like, oh, I could use all weapons at a minimum, but then if I want to use it well, then I have to specialize or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or 5e's like that. 5e's like that. Like you could use all melee weapons or all range weapons, like da da da. So yeah, that was my only thing. But yeah, that's all I have.
All right. Well, that leaves us with Decaf.
So let's talk about that sword.
Let's
So-
talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Medium.
Let's talk
blade.
about item requisition.
Okay.
you know,
Yeah, I wasn't sure
talk to
if
me about-
if we wanted to
talk-
save this for character creation or if we
Oh,
wanted
this
to
is
talk about
absolutely
this.
character creation.
Oh,
Yeah.
Item requisition is character creation. Talk to me about Ironhide. He has a gun with variable liquids, right? It would be a shame if he didn't have his signature gun.
See, and you know what? I held off on mentioning it. That is probably one of my biggest issues with this system. And this extends to every other iteration of it. With Power Rangers, with G.I. Joe. These are
They
these
all
are
have an item
franchises.
requisition rule set.
They
Yeah.
all have the item requisition rule set, but more than that, these characters are known for using their specific weapons. Like that is something, at least like looking at the original cartoons and like toys and stuff, they come Ironhide with the or Cliff Jumper with the glass gas cannon or other stuff like that. And so having requisitions be roles and not just be something like, hey, here's your kit and stuff like that. Yeah. No, I'm gonna let you go off on that, Decaf.
I mean, I stand by what I said, but I'll keep adding to it because I just talked about a good guy. Starscream, probably my most notably favorite villain because of the bull that he brings to the table every single time he shows up.
Mhm.
Null Rays.
Yep.
Biggest weapon, most common weapon. What would he do without them? Truly. Item requisition? Okay, now let's skip franchises because this is across the board for the Essence 20. Power Rangers.
Mhm.
Where's my Green Ranger with his synthesized trumpet noise-making dagger?
Mhm.
Oh, it doesn't exist because you rolled poorly? Oh, well, that's a shame. Now I guess you're not really the Green Ranger other than your costume's green. Like, dude, item requisition should never have been a thing. It should be standard kit, period.
Yep.
Whatever the heck you want to use, go with it. It's your flavor, it's your theme. It's like gold expenditure in other systems where it's like, oh, we'll just buy the equipment you want to use, right?
Mhm.
Every fighter wants to fight with a different weapon potentially. Let them have their weapon. Right?
Yep.
Optimus Prime is known for either an axe or a sword. Give him his axe or his sword. Taking that away and saying, well, we have like a maul, he's going to go, I can use it, but it's not a signature weapon.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think that's crap.
So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the fact that you have to like requisition stuff. I don't think that really. I would be a fan of just like being like, hey, weapons cost this much. Here's what you can do with them. Stuff like that. That being said, like one of the things they specifically try to do with weapons is leave them a little bit more open-ended and let you figure out the specifics by like putting on modifications or just like deciding. For example, going back to Flit Switch, you had a whole idea behind like your saber like a very agile blade, but we just had to like get you something called a medium blade,
Right.
which
And that was the thought. Even if it was like originally I was like, oh, what if it was an energon blade or something like that, or
requires another requisition.
yeah, but yeah, it would have required another requisition. And so I was like, I had to take what I had and then half the stuff I had I couldn't use. So I was like, okay, the way I'm useless in battle right now, this is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Out of like all the systems, I think I was most confused about the requisition system. Like
Well,
I
we
had
lost-
to reread that a
we-
few times.
We lost the episode of it, and I'm almost kind of glad we did, because it took us like the entire episode to requisition stuff.
I was so confused in that. Like, I had to reread that
It's
over and over again just to get a weapon.
Yeah, I think there was a couple points where it was like it almost felt like it was intended that maybe you can indeed just get certain things. Like as a gunner, it was like, yeah, you just qualify for like certain things, and as long as you qualify, you just get. But it wasn't even well worded.
Nope.
Like there was
It was
so much
confusing.
like convolution to like how it was worded. It just
The
didn't make
trainings
any
and
sense.
qualifications, I don't like either. No,
Yeah,
it's
because like in a similar boat, like imagine your two gunners. Ah, yes, the sniper without a sniper rifle, or ah, yes, the artillerist without artillery. Like,
Yeah.
what? You want me to run in there with a gun when my whole thing is a big thing that's mad like that?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that concept. If I'd have missed out on just requisitioning the one thing that would have made my class work,
No, I think that's a fair
you
call.
know.
So yeah, I think we all have similar thoughts in regards to how requisitioning works. But Decaf, you said you did like the other aspects of character creation. You have anything more you want to say on that?
I think everything that is positive has been said for sure. I
Okay.
don't really think
You'd
I
just
can
be
add more to it. Yeah.
Treading. Okay. Same ground as
Yep.
Well, yeah. No, I think these calls I think are fair.
Hmm.
I think I've built characters in the system just to sort of like test it out, and I mean I've played it with you guys. I've done it with some family once or twice. I think making the character might be more fun than playing it.
If
But
I may,
yeah, sure. Just
Um,
before we move on
I'll
here,
just yeah, I was gonna say I'll ask where you would put this, and then we can go from there.
sure.
Um, I will say that it felt a little what's it called? Mad. Would you equate that to
Oh,
being a part of character
I
creation or not?
100% agree. This game feels very mad.
Hmm.
The fact that you need to invest in initiative or else you roll with disadvantage every time,
Hmm.
Like I did. Like I did.
that's crazy. That
Uh,
is
yeah. Okay, then yeah.
it's
So
nutty that you have to do that.
because yeah, like the idea, because again, I mentioned like investing into skills and stuff like that. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but a lot of them are so important
Hmm.
all just separately for almost any task that it feels like in order to do just the basic functions,
So
you
yeah,
need a ton of different skills first.
I think one thing that maybe we didn't do, we kind of talked on a little bit, is I think you really have to sit down, like when you're playing a game like this, and talk with your fellow players about, hey, who's taking this skill, who's looking at this skill, um, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Which we do with Pathfinder a little, but I don't know, it
Mhm.
felt like there were definitely multiple skills like I'll make the comparison again, Pathfinder. You now by default everyone just has perception because they
Yep,
decided in first edition that was something everyone was
everybody took
always
in. Yeah,
taking. And it feels like this is with Essence 20, probably more so than even just Transformers, that there's a bunch of skills that feel like you kind of need
I mean,
just a ton of them.
especially for Transformers here, I feel like everybody should just have a D2 in driving at the very least. You know?
Yeah.
Probably a D2 in driving, multiple at
Targeting.
least targeting. Yep. The idea that, oh yeah, there's a jet above me who could just stay above me. Well, my sword's useful. Like, you know,
I should have threw my sword.
you know, like things like that.
Yeah,
So it's
so
like
I do
they're
think
definitely
that leans just
very
a tiny
dependent.
bit into the next topic I want to bring up. So I think we're just going to roll into that, and if you want to keep talking about it or other stuff related to this topic, because the next thing I want to talk about was just out of combat mechanics. How did it
Okay.
feel like when you came up to skill challenges and you had to like bypass them? How did it like? This is we said a little bit more combat focused. But how did you guys feel about playing the out of combat stuff? Um, and I think you bring up skills. It feels like you need a wide range of skills to almost function.
I I feel like out of combat, it didn't actually feel too bad.
Hmm.
Like I enjoy, I think both Thread and DK have especially touched on it, the idea of like your skill being a die, I actually don't disagree. I love that as a concept. I find that quite fun.
Mhm.
And it did actually, I feel like, for the most part, play okay. It is a little unfortunate that there is still a very, very good chance that you could just absolutely biff something you're supposed to be good at, but
You said that much
that just
much
comes down to
much
rolls as
more
with any
politely
system.
than I was thinking, but yes, yeah. No, and I do think that's honestly I'm going to agree with you. Well, actually, I think I'm going to disagree with you. I think that's one of my big complaints about the system is I don't like the dice roll. It feels
I was gonna say
too
I
swingy
like the concept. I don't know if it's
if it
quite
works.
implemented right, I think is a good way to word.
Okay.
And I think it's less noticeable out of combat, which is like here, I'm like, yeah, I think out of combat it wasn't as big a deal for me
Okay.
specifically.
Ah,
But then again, I wasn't the technology expert.
right. Does our technology
Listen
expert
here.
want to jump in, or should we save that for last?
So it's going to be a combined effort, regardless of where you're talking skills. We have to make them in combat as well as out of combat. I
Mhm.
think the problem that we come across is that, yeah, as mentioned, the system is very mad. I mean, I'm going to be the first one to point it out, right? I am hauling ass in the rear to everyone because I built for being a technology expert, not understanding that, oh, by the way, this system gives you an unlimited amount of free actions as long as you have the dex for it. And I'm sitting here going, well, that's great. I wish I had known that. So I get less actions per turn than everyone,
Yeah.
to the point of I'm surprised that was useful at all. But if you're unskilled, let's see. Let's start right there. So you roll with a snag. So you're basically being punished for not even having a skill
Yep. That is very
right
rough.
off the bat.
Yeah.
That's rough, right? And then if you have a specialization, you want to bump that as much as possible because suddenly you're rolling, let's say your proficiency is a d12, you're rolling that d20 plus a d12 plus a d10 plus a d8 plus a d6 plus a d4 plus a d2, and you only get to apply the highest result amongst all of those die.
Mm-hmm.
God help you if you only roll at high a 4 on all of those die, except for the d2.
We've
like,
seen stuff like that happen.
Yeah,
Like, I
the
mean,
system
we-
is so painfully swingy for that when you're supposed to be a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Not very specialized if you're failing. And don't get me wrong, I get luck-based systems. We have proficiency in other systems.
Mhm.
But at least when you look at the die and you go, okay, I rolled a 5, but I have a plus 18, but I rolled a 5.
So,
yeah, I think I'm going to try to re-roll that.
So I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Like in Pathfinder, if somebody who is trained rolls a skill and gets the same result on a d20 as somebody who's a master in that thing, the person who's a master is going to get a higher result. Now, if you change it a little bit, and I'm just saying, like, roll the same result on a d20, if you have somebody who is got a d12 in a skill in this system, and you have somebody that has a d2, even if the d20 result is the same, the person with a d12 has a chance of rolling lower than the person with a d2.
Makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. You also have. Now, remind me. It's if I may. A crit only happens when you roll max on the skill die, right? Not on the d20. That
is what I remember reading.
Okay. I dislike that because all of a sudden someone potentially has a chance to crit on a d4 who's maybe not as good at the skill when again you take that specialist on a d12 and now they have to get a 12. Like it's harder for them to not only succeed potentially because they still have a really low chance or high chance of rolling low, but also you make it even harder for them to critically succeed when they're the one who's supposed to be good at it.
Yep.
Like that. Oh, that, and you remove, there's this lovely feeling of rolling a nat 20 and getting a crit off of it, and you just take it away with that.
So yeah, I've had other issues with games that do something similar to this, where they create essentially two systems that you have to beat to like succeed, right? Because you guys have to your d20 has to roll well, but then your skill die also has to roll well. And so, yeah. Decaf, did you have anything else you wanted to add in regards to just sort of like out of combat, how the system operates?
I think that pretty much covers it. It was mostly a complaint-oriented one when it comes to skill checks. I don't like the 2 separate die determines your potential. Like the moment you could roll high on your skill, but then you roll like a 3 on the d20, you're not getting anywhere. You're stuck.
Yeah.
You're just going to fail, even if you're good at it. Like, I wasn't specialized in any specific technology field under, like, the science category, but I was good at it.
Yep.
Like, and it just felt like it's a hit or miss. It's a 50-50 chance.
Essentially, there's 2 gates for failure, essentially. Is at least the way it feels to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Luckily, with being out of combat, there's ways to circumvent whatever obstacle that's in front of you. You can always, like, find a back door or do something like that. So that little snag from constantly failing the roll, at least you can get around it.
Yeah. It would have been nice on like the skill die if there was like an auto, like if your skill die was like a D12, you should automatically like get a 6 at a minimum or something like that if you want. If we wanted to, that would have been nice. But
you
like we were rolling ones. We were rolling 2s, not 1s, because at least if we roll a 1, we could use a story point and re-roll it or something like that. But no, we were rolling 2s and 3s on both die and then being like, why do I suck?
That is a big reason as to why our last session took as long as it did.
It took so long.
We'll get to combat later.
I do appreciate though with off combat, it was a chance for us to be in our alt modes because I wanted to be an Aston Martin. Like that's a dream of mine to be an Aston Martin. So look at me living my dreams. And then I appreciated that there was Jax there being like, hey guys, go here and do this. Because the way I'm so bad at let's make a decision team. We need to go to next room and dungeon. The way that causes analysis paralysis in my brain. I like that Jax was like, yo, you just need to go here and do what you need to do. And I was like, okay, bet. I know how to follow directions. So yeah, I did appreciate that.
Well, great. Ben, do you have anything else to add on in regards to like just out of combat mechanics and just like general mechanics of the system?
General mechanics of the system. Beyond that, no, because I'm pretty sure the combat portion of it is gonna
cover the most of it.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask you guys, how do we feel about like the whole the upshifts and downshifts component?
I think it's a pretty good concept, honestly.
Yeah.
It was the only way we could get higher rolls.
I think conceptually it's neat.
I struggle.
Yeah.
And I have one reason. I don't dislike the idea of upshifts or downshifts. I actually liked that. Again, if I go off of the idea of concepts for using dice for skills, upshifts and downshifts, the way they were handled, for the most part, keyword here, I think was smart enough. I liked the idea that I could indeed increase my dies. The problem I have, if I go off of that, I hate, and we didn't really have to come across it, but I'm sure in high-level play it could be a thing. I hate the idea of you could get enough upshifts or downshifts
for auto success.
For auto success or auto fail, auto crit or auto crit fail. If you're going to have that already be a thing, you shouldn't even have to be rolling. Like, I did like that. There's ruling for that.
That's fair.
Yeah, because I couldn't shoot that rifle because it was an auto critical fail.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
You should at least have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. And so you know what, that is something, because a lot of us we play Pathfinder, where weapons are separate from skills, but here they're part of it, and so it's kind of another struggle.
That part. Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah,
you
just
have to
kind of
use
leading
up
into that and very
skill
mad.
points into something so that you can just fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Again,
So that you
making
can
it very
do the
mad.
basic thing that the system expects you to do.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to discuss on this, or are we ready to dig into combat?
I think I'm good with this one.
Okay. So, combat. Now I want to start off by saying I think the final fight is what is written a little weirdly. I made some adjustments on the fly to it that we talked about off air. Um, but outside of that, we did have some other combats. You guys fought some drones. You fought some people that Thread could not hit for the life of her because they were literally out of reach.
Couldn't do it.
Nothing you could do about it. Couldn't even throw the people you were trying to get out of cars at them or something.
Nope, couldn't even do that.
But yeah, how do we feel about combat in this system? And I'm talking, we've already talked a little bit about skill rolls. I'm fine with us touching on that again, but also stuff like action economy and things of that nature. Your defenses, the whole like you choose your effect and like how you chose attacks and stuff like that, and that whole rigmarole where you could defend with different defenses. Anybody want to start us off?
BB, I had one thing, and
Yeah.
the rest I'm gonna let you guys lay it out because the expertise is in the room. My one thing was that some motion needed things were considered actual actions. And so like I think an example was the fact that in order to convert it from alt mode to full mode was like an actual
A standard
action.
action.
Yeah, standard action. And I already had to give up my first action because
Of
of my
Vainglorious.
vainglorious, right? And then additionally, I had low initiative because I did not have that skill. So
Yeah.
already it's taking 3 rounds for me to start something, and then I had to spend a standard action.
Everybody
Yeah,
else has gone like 3 times before you've really acted.
right. Right, right. So I feel this would have been better if, like, if it was a move part, like I lost half of my movement action to like instead convert or something like that. That would have been dope.
Yeah.
But instead, I couldn't even do anything. But yeah, I had all these free actions and then couldn't really use them. Per also my fault because
Be
I
like,
was like, I was trying to figure out, could I do it? No. All right. Could I do that? No. All right. That's fine. That's fine. So,
yeah, something like,
but yeah,
yeah. And I mean, there is a
yeah,
general perk that players can eventually get, which like lets them transform quicker. But yeah, like I think it feels almost like so necessary on the characters a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I don't know any Transformer that isn't like one of those giant constructible ones that doesn't move at the same time and do stupid flips while they're transforming.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, now to be fair, you could do that because you can split up your movement and stuff. So you could have moved, standard action to transform, complete your movement. But yeah, no, the fact that it takes up a whole standard action slows down your entire turn.
Again, I'm sure that like later stuff does actually fix that because again we were playing level 1 and I'm not that I can give too much credit to the system on this. I don't necessarily want to do that unfairly, but also don't want to completely crash on the poor thing, right? We were like level 1, so I don't necessarily know if I know how that would play out.
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious if you do have other stuff that allows you more attacks or allows you to attack while you convert. Because yeah, like you think of traditional Transformer stuff, and yeah, I'm imagining slow-mo movie scene Optimus Prime switching out from vehicle, tackling something at the same time while he's going, and that definitely is not something you could do at level 1. But maybe that's my
So
thought.
yeah, you as a gunner at 7th level you can attack twice instead of once when you use the attack action to attack with a ballistic
Yeah.
weapon.
Which that feels similar to, I think, 5e in a way,
Hmm.
and how 5e would do it, I think.
So, like, with all the things going on with the game, once combat starts, it really does feel like it slows down quite a bit once combat starts. I think a lot of it really does have to do with like the roll system,
Right.
not roll
Yeah.
20, but
Roll.
like
Roll. Oh, the whole like having to like decide like what you're defending with and everything.
I really like that they give you the option and the freedom to choose what you're going to use to defend yourself with.
Mhm.
But everything starts slowing down so much because everybody's trying to make all these different decisions, and then we're trying to upshift and downshift things. Then we have to calculate what the hell we're doing,
Hmm.
and it slows things down. The two dice and the skill and the D20, like how many times that just ends up getting fumbled so often. So everybody's missing all the time, including the enemy.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah, it
really
creates a
starts
slog.
grinding.
If I could compound on that a little,
Absolutely, yeah. This is a open forum.
we played on Roll20, which for the
Mhm.
most part, I will say, any issues we had on that end were obviously Roll20 related, and the fact that we had a Power Ranger seat, all that we've already mentioned.
Mhm.
But as I was thinking about it, I don't know if I would want to play a game like this at a normal table.
Mhm.
If I, especially high end level, because imagine
Tracking all
you're
the
now
upshifts and
rolling.
stuff.
Yeah, you're tracking all these upshifts. Oh, I'm specialized in this now 2d8 upshift thing, so let me roll a d20, 2d8s over here, a d12 here.
Don't get you the D8 you roll as part of your specialization mixed up
Don't
with the two
forget that you
D8s that you roll
have
up from
a
your
different
upshift.
d8. Yeah, like there's so much going on that as you roll it on the table, that would be so confusing to be looking at all at once.
Or like the other option is like you would roll each die separately, and that would just take so long.
Yeah, and or it would slog.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's a lot to be doing in like one moment.
Yeah, and like we were doing all this on Roll20, so it did it for us, and
Was tracking a lot of it.
it still started slowing down.
It certainly didn't help. You had to click through 4 screens to do one roll,
Action,
though.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, one.
Okay, that one was definitely on Roll20 a little. I love every time trying to make a roll like, oh, yep, oh,
Yeah, the fact
yep,
that like
oh, yep,
the fact
oh,
that it's
yep,
like you had to enter the target number. I was not a fan of that. It's like you should just make the roll and I should tell you whether it succeeds or fails.
Yeah.
It was quite amusing. There again, it helped with certain details, but Roll20 definitely handled it in a weird way. It was quite funny.
All right. Shy or Ben, do you guys have anything else you want to add on combat, or do we want to let her rip with a decaf?
I feel like it was way too focused on long range combat. Like everything, like all the things that we fought in that first one were a bunch of jets.
Yep.
Like if they wanted to stay away from us, they could have just stayed away, and we'd have a really, really hard time dealing with any of it.
Yes.
So like it feels like, with
And the
our
adventure did specifically say, they had like some stuff they did that made them a little bit easier, but yeah, I do question the writing of the first adventure.
Yeah, so like we had our hand-to-hand combat specialist who was not allowed to do any hand-to-hand combat because they were just flying everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you don't have any like long-range capabilities, you're not really getting to do very much of anything.
Right.
And that's not fun. That part's not fun.
I think that's a fair call.
Yep, that's all I got.
Shai, you got anything else you want to bring up in regards to how combat felt? I'm gonna take. There we go.
I don't think anything new. I think we've gone over the majority of stuff that I kind of had in mind. Outside of, again, like, as a gunner, I really did not feel like a good gunner. Man, I was really
All
good.
those
Like,
missaves.
I had the one good hit that took out a bunch of them at once, and then never anything again.
I was gonna say you were pretty instrumental on the bridge when it came to shooting people down.
Which was great.
Yeah.
And I loved that. But man, the other fight, all I did, man, I was great at driving.
Yeah.
I was a fast bike.
That is what the adventure needed at the time.
I
All
was
right.
like, where did acid come from? I was like, I thought we're Transformers. Now I gotta deal with acid. I can't even shoot them. But
Probably
it
is a
could
very
acid
real
be
concern for Transformers,
right.
not gonna lie.
That's fair. That's fair. Batteries are real.
All right, Decaf. I hope letting the others go first didn't take up too much of what you wanted to talk about.
I mean, no.
Good.
The whip out
yes.
notebook.
I'm glad that people are able to, assess for themselves as well, kind of similar notions that I would have to pass as well. There is an enjoyment to this, except that, again, when you focus on building a system that is going to be based around combat, and the basis is very clearly 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons can be swingy because their proficiencies aren't as linear as, say, something like Pathfinder, right? I think Dimension
specifically.
Second edition specifically. I still think back to an episode of one of Dimension 20's one-offs that they did, which was called The Seven, and these high school adventurers who are maybe level 8 or 9 were able to charm or command a 20th level PC. And that is insane.
What?
And now you have, because that's the example of swinginess, and now you have an extra die.
Yeah.
So everybody who's supposed to be good at combat, which is practically every Transformer, Decepticon, Autobot, doesn't matter what, everybody's a freaking robot that's able to do something combat related. You've taken away almost every one of these characters' abilities to do anything, unless they're, I don't know, level 10 or higher. I felt useless. Now, I felt useless because I had no free actions to be able to do anything other than, let me move, transform. Okay, that's my turn. Okay, let me whack someone with my hammer and then transform. Okay, let me drive away and then transform. Like, great. But the problem I have with combat is the slog.
Mm-hmm.
You gave us an extra die that made the system so much more swingy that even the bad guys, with adjustments, sure, but you made them so swingy that they can't hit for piss. We can't hit for piss. It's 20 rounds of combat to get nowhere. And people already complain when you start hitting round 8, you know what I mean?
The bad guys that had 13 levels on you, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. 13 levels could not hit us. What the hell?
Even
exactly.
Even taking into account that they had disadvantage on all their rolls.
Right.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Pathfinder 2nd edition, you wouldn't. There's no chance.
Oh my gosh, you guys would be dead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If
That's a run.
They could roll a nat 1 and a nat 2, and then, well, hey, the nat 2 hits you. And that's
the nat 1 would be a success instead of a crit.
Yeah, literally, like.
But like the idea that we just went from Transformers to Transformers, but put on your Starship Trooper kind of like gear because you're shooting like you're from a Star Wars film, bro. What is this combat? This is embarrassing. This is so boring.
Right. So now you know, like when you are high level, Thundercracker, Acid Rain, and Skywarp aren't threats because they couldn't do anything to you at when you were level 1.
Right. Which I'm all for investing in the heroes being the heroes, but like at the same time, give me a threat level, right? It's okay to have easy, moderate encounters, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, if you want a challenge, give us a challenge. I don't know what that was that we experienced, but it wasn't that.
Yeah, maybe not a ridiculous challenge because that seems like excessive for a first, like a level 1 encounter.
Yeah.
Like what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
Why would they write that?
I don't know.
Especially because if they landed, that's it. Like one hit.
Dude, we
only
saw
got
the effect.
Yeah.
We saw the effect of what one hit would have done had it not graciously missed off of BB's, turn.
Keeping
like,
track of all the
Mhm.
downshifts and everything.
Exactly, and that was exactly that. There was a misinterpretation, which is why I've also mentioned it wouldn't work as well on a table. I feel like it didn't even work in roll 20. We struggled with it with roll 20. And like, sure, I have the least health of the group, but I'm sorry, I went to 1 health out of my 4 in 1 hit off of that encounter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess level 1 is always known to be lethal, but still.
Mhm.
Yeah, it felt like that was almost written by like a kid who wanted to put like really cool and well-known characters, but he didn't want you like being able to beat them.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah,
very cinematic.
It is.
I love that. I think that's a great example of like this is what the system maybe was trying to curtail to, right? Because the source material is thick.
Endless battles.
It is
Yeah.
it is honestly a great like material source to really pull off of and really get people involved in things that they have a passion about, right? Like here we are. BB is the #1 fan that we probably all know when it comes to Transformers. Sorry, Thread. There's
I
no
try
way
to
you
be.
can compete with him. I promise you.
Oh no. Wasn't even trying to. Not even a little bit.
But like it's a great source material. Same goes for Power Rangers. I mean, that was my like #1 favorite TV show when I was like 5, and I even still went back and rewatched the entire series when I was like 18, 19, and it was like all on Netflix for some reason. Like I thought it was very fun to just like reinvest in it for a moment, right? These systems have such good source material, and I can tell, like, you can see, like, that is a perfect example of they have cinematically wrote an episode of Transformers. That's what that is. That is supposed to be a 30-minute Saturday morning cartoon episode that you watch. The bad guys are going to get away, but the good guys save the day. Example of what happens. But the fact that they put so many stats behind it, where you can see the clear and obvious disadvantage for the heroes, and you as a GM have to intervene and go, okay, hold on. We have an issue here.
Yeah, because unless you want to just be TPKing the entire time, like you're not gonna want your players to get killed right off the bat.
Yeah, so that is the one adjustment I made to our final encounter there. The fact that the NPC humans that could turn the valves had to make skill checks. And it was a difficulty 18 and they had a D6.
Oh.
Bro, I couldn't hit that with a D8. Yeah, like what?
Our
What the
encounter
fuck?
would have gone another 20 rounds, and it probably would have ended with you guys dying before 2 valves were closed.
That's insane. We couldn't hit like the D16s. Or like the good lord.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a change I made, and I do not regret it.
Yeah, thank you.
Come at me in the comments.
Don't you dare come for him. This was a great thing he did.
I'm gonna stand by that choice.
Hey, can you imagine
We
these valve
stand by it.
engineers not knowing how to turn their valve? Like, why do you?
Why are
Why are
they
you struggling
there?
so much
Why are
with
you
this?
here?
You call yourself an engineer? Get out of here.
Yeah, and
I mean, I guess
the
to be
areas
fair,
were
I'm a gunner who
specifically
couldn't shoot his gun, so
yeah, the area were specifically like too small for you guys to get into, and it's
Eh.
Well, all right. Is there anything? Do you have any other notes on like the combat stuff?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I admit I was kind of in the same boat with Thread there when it came to the capability of the character, because admittedly I still remember going back to character creation. My shtick was I'm cheesing the system being able to roll technology checks for combat as long as the electricity trait is tied to the weapon. So I not only had my gun, but I actually had a hammer that I was ready to just whip out and just smash with. And it's one of those, like, I'm not brokenhearted over it because, again, I have a fallback. I have a gun that has electricity on it. But, like, I don't know. There was a lot that I found wanting, and I think strictly just because they really didn't tail out the idea that, like, hey, by the way, you need this stat to be able to do all the fun things when it comes to every action available in the game.
I think that's a fair call.
Yeah.
So I have, before we get to the final score, there's one last thing I want to bring up. This might be a little bit more me talking, and then I want to give you guys a chance to just like general forum, anything else you want to talk about or discuss. So I wanted to talk about how this system meshed with the themes and the idea of the franchise it is trying to represent. And we've discussed a little bit. You mentioned Decaf that it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon. But I think one of the things that stands out for me is I'm not sure transforming is as well integrated into the system as it could be or should be, maybe. And then I guess we already talked about the weapon requisitions. I think that is still a main point that sticks in my craw. Because like I said, we know, like, even referring to series you guys are more familiar with. We know Bumblebee has his blasters, his like dual blasters in every movie. We know Megatron. I mean, Megatron always has his fusion cannon. Like, that is Megatron's most famous weapon. Or, he's also famous for the flail. Or, like, looking at Transformers Animated, we had Bumblebee with his, what are they called? His stingers. You had Prowl with his shurikens or martial arts. You had Optimus Prime with his rocket-powered axe. And, like, those are the standard weapons. These are the weapons, like, they always have. And this is true even, like, if you look at stuff like G.I. Joe. Like, I mean, there's one-off, like, episodes where, like, oh, this is the weapon we need to beat the villain of the week. But the fact that you don't have your standard loadout every time you go, I don't like that. It does not feel like it fits with the idea of Transformers or even kind of the other franchises they've tapped into. But I don't want to get into too much deeper into that because we did talk about it. I just wanted to say I think that is a major failure in my eyes for this system. Other than that, I like the Energon. I like how that sort of came into play. I wish story points were a bit more like tied into the system. Because like Energon points are like, those feel more like hero points to me than the story points do. I guess story points are kind of closer to than the Energon to hero points than the Energon points are. But they just feel like a little disconnected. I do like that I get them as a GM. That was nice.
Fair.
Because we've house ruled me getting villain points in our Pathfinder games. Yeah, I don't know. How do you guys like? You guys are not. I'm not trying to disparage you or anything, but you guys aren't as familiar with Transformers as I am. Do you have any other thoughts or feelings about how like the Transformers as a whole, as like a franchise, meshes with the system?
I mean, you're not wrong about a whole lot of that stuff. Like, even in other like media forms, whenever there's like, for example, DC Universe Online,
Mm-hmm.
when you're creating your own character, they have all these ridiculous superpowers and everything. But everybody still has their signature stuff. You still see the heroes and the villains with their signature stuff. If
Mm-hmm.
nobody had their signature items for any of those licensed franchises, then there'd be no point in even having the license in the first place. So to have this and not have people being able to have like signature weapons, or not have even the option, like, you know, like a legendary pickup or some legendary loot of like you get Megatron's flail, I mean, it's kind of missing a really big opportunity there, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I was talking a little bit more along the idea, like, if you're trying to build, you know,
Mm.
this character in the system, because like there is like obviously Megatron has a stat block, and you guys could probably fight him maybe at level 5 or something and try to jack his shit.
Yeah, like that would be really cool.
Yeah, and then you have to requisition it. The next time you after you turn it over to the quartermaster.
Yeah, and like that's like fun, unexpected stuff that you could really build off of. Like, I did a homebrew thing with the Pied Piper, like being taken over by rats and stuff. Like the rats were trying to play the flute and crap like that. One of the players jacked the flute from my hand, and I was like, "Well, shit! Now I gotta figure something out for this." And
Yeah.
you know, it's like, guess I'm gonna reward them for being creative and actually rolling well enough to take it.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, congratulations, you have this nice legendary item now that controls rats. But there's
Nice.
doesn't seem to be anything available in this system for that. Like, could we get sound waves like cassette tape? Like, that'd be cool.
Not his cassette tape. You could get.
Oh,
his
that's right. That's a thing.
Yeah, you could get his concussion blaster though.
Yeah, like that'd be really cool.
Yeah. However, like the whole thing, the way it seems to be written is like, hey, you beat Soundwave and you got his concussion blaster, but you know when you return to base, you turn it back over to the quartermaster or whoever, and if you ever want to use it again, you got to requisition it.
Mm-hmm. Or they feel bad and they'll return it to Soundwave.
Yeah.
We don't do that kind of thing here. We got to give it back to the owner.
They're machines, so keeping other people's guns is essentially the same as keeping prisoners of war.
How dare you? Oh, Punishberry, you're good. Was that your thoughts? I didn't want to jump in if you weren't done.
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Sweet, sweet. My biggest gripe with this system for Transformers was that in combat, I couldn't transform in and out easily. Like, what I envisioned when we were going to play this system was what I'm used to when I see the Shia LaBeouf movies, where I would be able to transform into a car, then I suddenly am a robot, and I swipe my sword, and then I hit them, and I'm like, victory! And then I turn into a car, and then I zoom around, and then I come back, and then I turn into a robot again, and then I go like, pew, 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 and then go, like, that's what I was hoping for
Well,
combat.
like, yeah, Revenge of the Fallen, where we see, you know, Sideswipe chasing down the two Decepticons, and like he transforms and like bisects the guy like mid transformation and stuff, or like or if any of you have watched Transformers 1, the more recently, where transforming was heavily figured into the choreography of the like fight scenes there.
Right.
Like you had Optimus Prime use his transformation to rip a guy in half.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's what we want. That's what we want. Our transformations should also be weaponized. Yeah.
Or like,
so
at least have there be an ability to do so. Like maybe it's a specialization you have to take or something. But having transformation be quicker and easier, I think.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
in the movie, it was integral to the story and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also it wasn't just ground, it was like jumps, it was leaps, it was being able to climb and then jump down, or like grab one of them by the arm and swing around and then hit them, and then you're like doing acrobatics in the air and stuff like that. And the way we could not do that because our motion economy was really just you either go forward or back or up or down if you can fly. And then like that's separate, and it wasn't even a free action. Like our free actions were, can you punch in a code? Maybe. Like it was wild. So like for it to be the Transformers franchise and I could not transform seamlessly. It drives me insane. So, pun intended.
So I
Dang
like
it, you beat me to it.
I think yeah. I don't know. I wonder if this would benefit from something like a 3-action system, like in Pathfinder, and just have transforming be converting between modes be a single action. I
Yes.
think it would.
Yes.
That's why I'm working on it. But
Totally,
Yeah.
totally not an advertisement to PF2E.
See, I do think that would benefit a lot because in the homebrew that I played with you, it really did. And there were like certain things you could do that if you transformed, sometimes something interesting happened.
Mhm.
With mine, my Dinobot went kind of feral and started hitting people randomly.
Yeah, yeah. You went a little berserk.
Yeah, which
And
was a fascinating like little mechanic to put in. So like you really had to either be kind of an asshole sometimes, which sometimes I was, or you really had to really think about whether it'd be a good idea to transform or not.
Yeah.
that part.
Well,
Also, if I have 8 free actions and I can't use them, why do I have 8 free
free
actions?
actions.
Because I was holding up the game because I was like, I have 8, I can't do anything else. I gotta optimize my free actions and couldn't even do. So like, if there isn't much one can do with free actions, don't give me 8. Give me like 2 or 3, or like you said, a generic action economy where you can expend
the
3 however you need to. Like, yeah.
the action
Mhm.
economy relying on one specific stat that you had to pour skills into was maybe not my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Especially because the idea that you could have a 1 in that stat and then like, oh, you can
You
either
can only take a
standard or
standard
move.
action.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
that's
I don't like that.
hmm I think that's fair. Do you guys have anything else in regards to like how the system fit the franchise, the theme, or should we move on to general discussion?
I mean, I think they did a good job fitting it
Mhm.
as well as they could.
Yeah.
I think the
Aside from the
system
stuff we
need not
said.
be. Yeah, I think the system itself is the issue with it more than anything.
hmm
But like the writing of it and the way that it flowed with the story was not bad.
Okay.
Like I'm not
I
gonna
think
go
I
out and
can
buy it myself, but like I wouldn't hate playing it in the future.
hmm
I think I can second that for the most part. Like my struggles are with Essence 20, I think is the system,
hmm
not necessarily how they fit Transformers to it.
Okay.
And because like the different parts that were again the Transformers part of it I did enjoy. Again, I made like my small complaint that I think is more Transformers oriented with these very specific like size based thing.
hmm
And even then that's still them kind of pushing it towards Essence 20.
Yeah.
But I think for like again like the most part when it comes to like the actual part of like where like their description of abilities, their how they did story writing and stuff like that, I didn't necessarily dislike, I would say.
All right. Cool.
My
Um.
my oh sorry. Oh,
No, go
my
for it.
only writing thing. My writing thing was like building the first part of building the character, the writing was clean, classes were clean, like those part made sense. What like we've hit on, once we got to the requisition part, the text made no sense. I read those pages over and over again and it was like very confusing.
We all
If they
did. It
could
was
clean
bad.
that, it was bad. If they could clean that up and also maybe a chapter on how things are interconnected, like showing examples of if you choose this, you might lose this, you might not be able to do this, but you can do this. Like if that's the type of system they're trying to build, where this decision means you can't do this decision, there should, my understanding, be a chapter of examples of like if that happens, this is what you may cost or what you won't be able to do or how your character might be limited. And I know there was like I think a flavor of that, but
hmm
I think in the book, but I think they could hit on that harder. If everything's going to be interconnected like that, then there needs to be a good chapter detailing those interconnections and those decisions, at least so that a player understands better.
Okay. Well, it does sound like in general we've moved on to a sort of general forum discussion here. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up? Decaf, is there anything you didn't get a chance to cover with the topics I brought up?
So no, I think I've covered everything that I have for saying my piece. I mean, at the end of the day, you created a combat focused system because it's based off of a combat focused system. You added a lot of new dice mechanics that actually ended up a little too clunky for my taste. It's surprisingly crunchier because of it, but I don't think that means it benefited in the long run.
Fair. Yeah, anything else you guys want to say then?
Yeah.
Or should we get to closing this out?
Close to wrapping it up here. I want to emphasize again, in case Essence 20, if you're watching, listening, we hope you are. The way we would benefit from minimum rolls and minimum rolls not being a 1, like this system would have been infinitely better if, like we've been emphasizing, if we're going to go with the upshifts and the downshifts, and if the modifiers are dice, the minimum roll cannot be the 1 or the 2 or something. Like please, like I like that there was a little bit of, there's some chance of if you will hyper succeed or critically succeed versus fail, that's fine. But like, if we're going to have a skill set, it say like you're going to have a D8, you cannot roll lower than a 4. That makes no sense. Why add the dice as like a specialty? And I think we said this throughout the episode, but we are dead serious. Like, why have this dice if we can't use? Why? So if you're gonna bring me through 4 screens just to roll, dag nabbit, let me get a min 4 on a D8. Like, my goodness. So I rest.
It's like a loot box system. It's the possibility of rolling well.
Hate
oh man. Essence, are you trying to say Essence 20 is the gambling system?
Wait, Essence 20 is a gotcha game?
Well, man,
I don't know.
I didn't know that. Man, that changes ever. Hold on, let me rebuild this character here. Get in a different headspace. No whammies. I think I'll add on in a similar boat. I think I or not similar. I probably was amongst, just like I gave a lot of criticisms. I tried to like say like, yeah, I felt like they were fair. I didn't want to like just hash on it. But again, I will reiterate something I said at the beginning. I'm like, I still enjoyed playing. It was still something I enjoyed doing, and this could, potentially be involved in the fact that I was just invested in the setting. I was invested with the players I was playing with, but like the method of the system we played is still obviously very integral to like that experience. And I will say it's not like I didn't enjoy playing. So I do want to just reiterate that, like, no, this is not my system. I think it had a good amount of flaws. I probably wouldn't choose it again, but I still enjoyed playing. And I think that's a very big thing to at least add.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is still enjoyable. Yeah. Like, if I saw this out and like, oh, you know what? My kid really likes Transformers. I think we might try this. It wouldn't be a bad move. I wouldn't be like upset about like running the game with him. So I'm like, yeah, it's still enjoyable, but like, especially if you love Transformers, yeah, it's still very much enjoyable.
Yeah. I'm not going to go out of my way to avoid it. I just won't go out of my way to get it, I think is a good way to word it.
Right.
I'm not going out of my way either way. It's not worth it either direction in my head.
All right.
But it's gross potential. There's so much gross potential here. So it should maybe sway. Because I had fun too. Like, it was a good time. And BB, shout out to the artist. If you want to shout out that artist again for our characters, I just love the art that we got to play with. I thought that was also fun.
Yeah,
It
so
has
this
nothing
art,
to do with Essence 20, but
yeah, this art is done by Miss Octopus, who you can find on Twitter
yes,
and Instagram and all sorts of places like that.
yes, yes. But yeah, it was a good time. But I just the things I griped on. I think once those were resolved, I would be like, yeah, I'd play again. But yeah,
All
Yeah,
right.
now that we've gone through it, we would probably build things a little differently.
Yes.
And now that we know, we probably would have an easier time with certain aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just
No,
want more skills.
I-
More skill
Well,
points, please.
all right. So we did this with the last one. Um, I wanna, I wanna get. Let's put a number on it. Let's put a nice little bow on it. Final score for the system out of 5. I'll
Out of
start.
5.
I'll start. I'll give you guys a little bit of time to think. Man, the fact that it is Transformers goes a long way with me, but I'm trying not to let that color my judgment too much. I'm gonna say from the GM side, I don't think I had as many of the issues as you guys did. Um, you know what? Actually, I do want to say one thing on the GM side. I want a book that is like general threats, because right now a lot of like the threats you can bring into play are like named characters and stuff, which means they kind of tend to use a higher level for them. Um, so I'd love to see more stuff like Sharkticons, Alicons, um, just more like basic enemies that could be used. Um, but maybe that's just not the how other people want to play. Um, that being said, I'm I'm stuck between 2 out of 5 and 2.5 out of 5. Um, and I think I'm gonna go 2.
Ooh,
Maybe
right.
that's a little bit harsh. And you know what? Some of that harshness might come from the fact that I was super excited for a Transformers RPG, and this didn't quite live up to what I was hoping for. Anybody else got their numbers ready?
yeah.
All right.
So, with thinking about all of it and like compare it with all the other things that I've played, and this being a Transformers thing, which again, same, it does go a long way because it brings back all the nostalgia and all the stuff that you really enjoyed about Transformers.
Yep.
So like, I still enjoyed myself even with the parts that weren't super great. It was still an enjoyable experience. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Again, like you said earlier, I'm not gonna avoid it. I'm not gonna go out of my way to avoid it. I'm not gonna go out of my way to get it. So like, yeah, I'd give it like a 3.
A 3? Okay. I think
Yeah.
that's fair. Anybody else want to have their numbers ready to go?
I
I
think
was. We did it again, Shy.
I know we're great at this. I have my number
We're
ready.
best. We're besties.
Great minds think alike, or a lot of not so great minds probably alike too. But hey, we'll stick with great.
All right.
Party.
Why don't you want to kick us off, Shy, then, between the two of you, since Thread got to go first last time.
Yeah, sure.
So what's
Sure. Why not?
your number?
Yeah. I've after some similar considerations, like I don't have nearly as big a tie
Mm-hmm.
to Transformers. I enjoy the overall concept with it. I like, the idea of transforming from vehicle to mech. I think it's a great thing that it is fun in its own right. And put into an RPG was still fun in its own right. Obviously had my gripes with different skills and rules, and I think putting it all together, I'm gonna say a 2.5.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit right in between where you both kind of have it. I think
Okay.
that's about where I'm sitting.
All right. Well then, Thread, you were ready to go.
Yep. My brain has been wavering between 3 and 4. But I felt like 3 might be too low.
Mhm.
But I don't want to be a diva and be like 3.3, but that may be it. Like it may be, it's not a 3.5 yet either.
The 3.3.
So it's gonna be a 3.3.
All right.
That's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to do.
we can do that.
Yeah.
Decaf, save the best for last.
Well, there's not much there considering it's a 1.5.
Oh no. Oof.
Again,
Oof.
all the story passion is there. I love that. That is everything that I would want to see. I'm not like the most cinematic person because I do think there are some systems that go too far away from mechanics to do the storytelling, but there's a place and there's a goodness behind it, and they have all the passion. But man, knowing that there are developers there that have done great work in the past that seemingly are not pulling all the strings that they used to is the greatest disappointment I have towards this specific system.
Yeah. Yep. Well, there you have it, folks. That gives us an average of about a 49%, which is not great. But you know what? I want to preface that. I want to put a little bit of qualifier on it. Shy, Decaf, and I think Ben a little bit. Thread is newer, but we do tend to play systems with a little bit more complexity, systems with a little bit more crunch, that still manage to flow well. And so this system, I don't really think was for us. We kind of just bounced off of it. If other people love it, that is great. I'm happy to hear that. I hope this game goes on for a while. I know they just released the Techno Organic Secrets book, which adds like beast modes and stuff. I hope there's plenty more books to come, and everybody who plays it continues to love it. However, I will be going to figure out how to put Transformers into Starfighter 2nd Edition. So, yeah. I think that covers our little stream here tonight. That covers our epilogue. We need to figure out what our next path less traveled is going to be. So, we're going to see you down the road for a new adventure, a new journey, next time. Until then, stay safe, be good, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Ah.
Bye.